Good morning, good morning. Getting this shared around. Let's see here. There we are. Finally has come on here, so yay. It's Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It's bright and sunny here. I hope it is where you are at too. Um, Man, I'll tell you, I just wish spring would come on. It can't make up its mind. For sure, it cannot make up its mind. But that is all good. Let's see here. Bum, bum, bum. Making sure that this is shared around. We can all start singing good morning, good morning. Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum. So, hi Tiff, I see you there. Thank you so much for joining. We are going to jump right into this. Let's look here. Trying to share this around. And my Facebook is not cooperating this morning, not even a little bit. Probably needs an update that I'm not aware of, I am sure. Let's see if it'll let me do it again. No, it's not. So, all right. So, this may be exactly where God wants it to be, right? This may be it. So, welcome, welcome. Today is one of those boy, it hits you in the face moments. When I was reading back over the devotion, which of course is by Liza Turkhurst. You all know here we are on the seventh one. And I thought the first book was good, but can I tell you, like this second book that I've dove into is just, man, it just speaks to life. 100%, it just speaks to life. It speaks to letting you know you're not alone. But I think what it really speaks with me is the imperfection of when you know what how you want things to go. Again, she keeps coming back and touching on this, which is amazing to me. Talking about how you want something to go, but it doesn't exactly go as you were hoping it would go. Like asking God for what you want, but yet he has another agenda, right? Like he knows where he wants you, and I don't know. Sometimes I'm guilty of being the person who says, God, I know exactly. I want to be exactly where you want me, as long as it ends up that the journey is here, as long as I can continue doing what I'm doing where I'm at, and that is something that is hugely not in my favor. Um, I don't think God ever said that when we do things in life that it's always going to be out of bravery. Sometimes it's out of fear. You get used to what you know has always been, and that's hard. Perfect example, moving down here to North Carolina. I had never lived anywhere else but Maryland, so in reality, um, I was a little scared. I knew I needed a change. I knew I needed to get someplace more affordable. Um, but I kind of fought that for a long time. What does that look like? Where would I end up? That kind of thing. So here I am. Here I am. and really glad that I made the move. It was probably one of the best moves that I've made. Sometimes things like that can give you a new perspective. You don't always see things a different way until you're put in a different geography, a different mindset. We just get so used to the same old normal and living the same life we've always lived in, but at the same time wanting to complain about the same struggles that we've dealt with. I think that is a huge thing too. I really do. And I wanted to make sure that in my life, which is the only life really at this point I'm responsible for, but that what I was doing was absolutely that God was in it. Because if for me, if he's not in it, eventually it's going to go wrong. Eventually it's not going to look good. Eventually I'm going, I don't understand. Why in the world didn't this go good? How come, this isn't as great as I thought it would be? And in essence, you have to figure out, did you take the path that he wanted you to, or were you hoping when you were taking a path, or you stayed on a path, that he would just continue to bless that path and just see it your way? I think that is where we talk about, is it God's will or what we're hoping God's will is. In this chapter, it's called Step After Step of Unwavering Obedience. And I have to tell you, I thought when my kids were growing up, I wish that they had had unwavering obedience. They didn't. They were always testing me. They were always trying me. They were always trying to get me to see it their way. But mom, this would be so good. This is why. Mom, this is why that me and my friends should be able to go play in the street ball even though cars are zooming we will hear them, mom. We will be able to run out of the street quickly, mom. You need to see this my way. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. You're not going to play in the street. That's not going to happen. And I think sometimes that's what we do with God. We are determined that we want to play in the street. We know that we can handle what it is that we want, but we just want God to agree with us. And sometimes when God does direct you in a different way, sometimes we don't get it. Like have you ever made you just know God's leading you somewhere. You know that this is going to be something different. You know that this is going to probably make you uncomfortable. You know that oh, I just wanted to go anywhere but here, but yet he keeps leading you there, and you just don't get it, and he just wants you to trust him. That's what he wants. And I thought the verse was very fitting, and so is the story, because I've read this story a million times, grew up with it in Sunday school, grew up with it in Christian school, and just heard it in church many times. But yeah, step after step of unwavering obedience. And this is based out of Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways, or neither are, I'm sorry, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declare the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. That's huge. That's huge. He always knows better. And even though we don't always see exactly why God leads us where he leads us, eventually it will show itself. But sometimes things are just faith. Things are just doing it because you know God is leading you there. You just know that this is what he wants. And it doesn't matter how scary it is. It doesn't matter what other people think. Some people are going to think that you're crazy. Some people are going to think, why are you doing that? I don't understand you. This doesn't even make any sense to me. You are never, when you're supposed to be somewhere that God wants you. Can I be honest? You're going to get opposition. You are going to get people who are like, you're crazy. Let's think back to Noah. It had never rained before. Noah was building an ark, right? And people were like, dude, you've lost your mind. You have lost your mind. Why are you doing that? I don't understand. And it's an ark. Look how big this thing is. Are you crazy? But Noah had to stay in the mindset that said, this is what God has told me to do. This is what he's led me to do. And I am sure that Noah did not understand either. I am absolutely sure that Noah thought, God, are you sure? I mean, I know we don't read that, but Noah was human. So you really want it this big? You really like for water? Like, we don't, I mean, God, I'm just saying. And God just, I'm sure, reassured him every day, just keep doing this. These are the measurements. This is what I want you to do. And then calling the animals in two by two. I just think, of course, people thought that he was crazy, but that didn't make God's message and God's direction any less godlike. So, my thoughts are not your thoughts. So, here's what Liza has to say about this. She says, I'm a planner, a problem solver. So, when I bring my struggles to the Lord in prayer, I tend to also bring my carefully thought out ideas and suggestions that he can choose from. Here's what I think will work, Lord. I just need you to sign off on one of these, okay? That is so me. Like, this is what I want. Could you fix this? And could you do that? And then I'll go over here and do this, and we all gonna be good, okay? Could we do that? Could we do that? Please, could we do that? But the longer I walk with him, the more I'm discovering that simply isn't the way God works. His ways, they aren't our ways. What we see we think we need, God knows we don't need. Sometimes, if we listen, God will save us from ourselves if we listen. In the previous devotion, what we did last week, we learned a valuable lesson from Elijah. Today, I want to introduce you to another Old Testament friend who has something to teach us, Joshua. Y'all know Joshua, right? You heard about Joshua. In the 6th chapter of the book of Joshua, we find Joshua and the Israelites experiencing a problem of epic proportions. There was a massive wall preventing them from moving forward into the promised land. I can't help but wonder what murmurs circled through the camp as they looked at the towering walls of Jericho. I'm sure there was no shortage of ideas or opinions on how they should tackle that wall. Maybe we should blow it up. Maybe we should just take it down one brick at a time. Maybe we should just find a way around it. I mean, I am sure there were so many ideas on this. But God didn't ask anyone for their opinion, not even Joshua. Instead, he asked for their complete and unwavering obedience. Obedience in the face of a battle plan that would make no sense to their rational minds. A plan that actually involved no battle whatsoever. All God wanted them to do was march. For 6 days straight, they were to march around the walls of Jericho. Then on the 7th day of marching, they were to end with the trumpet blasts and a great shout. God declared this mighty sound would bring down the walls. Now think about this. Let's just all march in silence around this wall. We're going to walk around and around, and we're going to do this for 6 days. 6 days. And then on the 7th day, you're going to march, and then you're going to end it with trumpets blasting and shouting, and God's just going to crumble those walls. Again, one of those deals where you're like, what? I mean, God, come on, we can do this. Couldn't we kind of do it our way? I mean, there's like no drama with this. You just gonna do this? I don't understand. We gonna look crazy. People gonna watch us. We just walking around. We not making a sound. And then all of a sudden, we going to stop. We gonna blow trumpets, and we gonna holler at the loudest that we can. And then you're just gonna take care of the wall. Okay. What moves me most about the Israelites part in this story isn't so much their willingness to take that first crazy step of obedience, but it's how they kept taking steps of obedience. Step after step after step. Even though nothing appeared to change. Even though there wasn't a single sign of cracking or crumbling in those massive walls, they kept marching. Think about that. First day, they're marching, they're marching, they're marching. Like like she said, are we noticing any cracks because we did it today? Well, nope. Here comes the second day. We're like marching, marching, marching. I mean, are we hearing any rumbling? Are we hearing anything here? Like what's going on? No, we're not hearing anything. And then the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth day, they just kept marching, but no signs of what was happening. What if they stopped after day 2 or day 3? Or what if they had stopped on day 6? Think of all they would have missed. They would have cheated themselves out of certain victory from God. And think of all the wasted and unnecessary energy, plus the risk of getting harmed if they had attempted to tear down the wall themselves. I don't say any of this casually, as if it's easy to keep going with God's instructions when there's no evidence of our situation changing. It's hard to continue marching when we don't see God move the way we thought He would. When the direction has changed from what you thought He would lead you to be and to do. It's sometimes difficult to trust that He's working behind the scenes. So, what do we do when He asks us to move in a way that doesn't make sense to us? How do we keep marching when the situation still looks hopeless? What happens when where He directs you, it fills you full of fear and the unknown of what could happen? I can't even imagine what they were feeling, but yet on other avenues, I can absolutely imagine what they were feeling. So, what do we do when He asks us to move in ways that don't make sense? What do we do with that? How do we keep marching when the situation is helpless? Good morning, Rosie. We make the same choice the Israelites made. We choose to walk by faith, not by sight. We take God at His word and hold fiercely to His promises. God had promised Joshua that He would deliver Jericho, its king, and its armies into Joshua's hands. And that is exactly what He did. When they marched around that city on that seventh day and gave the great shout with a blare of the trumpets, the walls fell down flat. Flat! The city was theirs for the taking. Their victory never hinged on their ability or any of their well thought out plans. It was solely dependent on their unwavering obedience offered to a loving and mighty God. I don't know what steps of obedience God is currently calling you to take that don't make sense to you. But let me be the gentle whisper in your ear, encouraging you to keep going. Keep trusting. Keep taking step after step after an obedient step. That paragraph right there, I don't know how God knew I needed it. I needed it yesterday when I read it. I needed it this morning again when I read it, because this spoke so deeply to me that there are times that people are going to leave you and they're going to walk away from you, and they're not going to understand the journey. They're not going to understand the change in direction. They're not going to understand maybe why you had to leave that marriage. That maybe you had to make a shift in your thinking and your logic, which wasn't real logical, right? But like you just wanted to say it was logical, right? You just wanted to say that. And I kept reading this part over and over and over again. I don't know what steps of obedience God is currently calling you to take that don't make sense to you and they don't make sense to others. But let me be the gentle whisper in your ear, encouraging you to keep going, even when it's not the popular vote. I needed that so badly. Even in this very moment, this very second, I needed it. Because when God leads you another direction, it can create the loss of support. It can be a loss of love that you didn't know was conditional. It can be a loss of family not getting behind you and saying, no matter where God leads you, we want you to know we got your back too. Sometimes where you're being led and what you know God has for you, when Satan doesn't want you there, it will absolutely bring doubt and fear and rejection and people thinking you're crazy, and you will be betrayed, and people will turn their backs on you, and you're going, wait a minute, but I thought we had, wait a minute, I thought this was deeper, wait a minute. No, there's no waiting. There's no waiting, y'all, because when God calls, you listen. And if you don't, you're going to miss out on something much greater than you could have ever experienced. And I've done this before in my life, where decisions I made were not the, I did not get the popular vote. Let's be honest. But you know that God is okay with you. And if he can be for me, who could be against me? I've also realized that when you follow his path, there are greater relationships to soak up on. That God is going to provide support for you. And you know what? For me, Miss Liza, who I've never met, but she has been such a source of strength and inspiration, and just showing me that when you know God's leading, keep going. Keep going. It doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. It doesn't matter if people understand why you feel a need to change churches or that God's leading you somewhere else. It doesn't, it doesn't matter if people don't understand or don't agree with how you're raising your family or what you're doing. If you are where God wants you, that should be the above all. And sometimes it is hard. There have been times in my life where just because I didn't want the rejection, that I would turn from a decision that I knew I needed to make. I knew where God wanted me. I knew that it would be great. I knew that it would be better. I knew that I would grow as a person. I knew that I would be better for other people. But I let the comfort and the fact that I was scared of change and the fact of what people would think and the fact that maybe I would be viewed as a failure, that I would let those things keep me where I wasn't supposed to be for years. He never promised easy. We don't have to understand the why of God's ways, but we do have to keep choosing to follow them, even amidst the losses in life that you will experience. Let's not stop short of our victory with God. He is working things out, He is present. His plan is still good and He can still be trusted. There are certainties even when life feels so uncertain. Maybe our prayer to God needs to be, I confess that at all times that my heart feels discouraged when I don't see immediate results from my steps of obedience. That's where I have been lately. I confess that at times my heart feels discouraged when I don't see immediate results from my steps of obedience. Thank you for reminding me that just because I can't see you moving, it doesn't mean you aren't. Please help me as I walk by faith and not by sight, day after day, step by step. So that is my encouragement for you today through Lisa. It is my encouragement to you to say, life changes, y'all. There are shifts your whole life. Some things that you don't expect, sickness, cancer, divorce, people who turn their back on you, people who are only happy with you when you're doing what they want you to do. And I'm telling you that God says, I know it doesn't look that way now, but I have bigger plans for you. And even if that means that maybe somebody doesn't understand why you're still why you are where you are. Maybe somebody thinks you should do something else. On the contrary, if God hasn't directed you to do that, don't worry about what they think. Do what feels don't do what feels good to you because you know you do something else. Do what God leads you to do. Ask him to direct you. I think with everything that I see now that needs a difference or that needs a new direction or that I feel like I'm not so sure God is in this anymore. I think with all of that, I'm always praying, God, I'm not the smartest person out there. I'm really not. Sometimes I let people take advantage of me. I know because I love people. I get it. But God, sometimes I'm not always real good at seeing what you want. So could you please knock me over the head with a 2x4? And could you kind of show me to where he's like, okay, it might take 3 2x4s and you might be very painful in the end. But I believe that when that's what you're requesting from God, you can. But when you sit on the things that you want, when you sit on the things of the directions that you want, when you sit in the directions of where you want God to move instead of where God wants you to move, that's when the problem begins. Just about every big move I've ever made in my life, and there have been some really big moves. It has been so scary. Matter of fact, I can't think of one that's ever not been scary. I mean, buying my first house was scary. So worried that what happens if I get in this house and then the washer goes or the dryer goes and it's my responsibility. Those are just fears. But when you look at the door that God opened for me to do that, then I have to believe he's going to take care of the rest. That's got to be what you look at. You can't worry about what is to come. You can't worry about, well, what if this wasn't a good decision? What if this was, because if you feel God leading, when He gives you the direction He wants you to take, no matter what that looks like, it doesn't matter if everybody agrees with it. It doesn't matter. Look, if there wasn't opposition, it would be easy, right? It would be easy. It's not. Doing the right thing a lot of times is not easy. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. So, what I encourage with you today is exactly what this said. Step after step of unwavering obedience. Step after step, y'all. If you are walking in God's will, if you are walking down the path that He has opened for you, if you are walking in the relationship that God wants you to walk in, then walk in it no matter what the audience says. Because they're always going to be those who are against you. They're always going to be those who think you should do something different. What is their agenda? How about that? Somebody wants you to stay where they want you to stay because they have an agenda. There's an agenda. Period. Boom. Because the person who really supports you and the direction that God wants you, no matter what that looks like, look, people hate walking away from a relationship. You're like, oh my gosh, I know this guy wants to marry me. But a lot of people don't know. This doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. But I know I really love him, whatever it may be. But your gut instinct is telling you this may not be the thing. And then suddenly you decide it's not the thing. But now everybody, all the friends you have together, all of that, everybody's mad at you. You've broke up something that felt very comfortable for everybody else, very comfortable, that maybe they don't have to look at their relationship and they don't have to look at what they're doing in life, because sometimes when you do something that is outside everybody's norm of what they expect of you, sometimes it suddenly makes them look at their own path. And just maybe they have been dictating the path that they wanted God to direct them to, instead of being directed by God to the path that He wanted. It doesn't look the same for everybody. And if everybody just realized that, I think there would be massive support. But there's not. Because fear always seems to trump everything these days in our society. And fear, it's not even fear of you when you make the change. It's really just fear of, oh gosh, how does this change something for me? Does this change who our friends are? Does this change? I need you to know something. God doesn't think something halfway out. He doesn't. He knows the path from beginning to end. He knows this part of your journey that you're struggling with from beginning to end. Even if it's difficult, even if it's hard, even if you don't understand it, even if it doesn't feel good right now. If you are on a path that you know that God wants you on, you are going to get through it. And when you get to the end of it, there is something that may help you help other people. There may be something that makes you a stronger and better person. There may be, if you feel like you're losing friends, dude, you think God can't put new and better friends in your life? Seriously? He brought down the walls of Jericho. Okay, the walls, simply by people marching around for 6 days, and on the 7th day, with trumpets and shouting, the walls came down. That's simple. There's so many things in life that we are not meant to know, because see, faith walking is exactly that. Walking exactly where God wants you to walk. And doing it maybe through the tears, and doing it sometimes when you absolutely don't understand, and doing it through loss. And maybe God needed you to see that those people who aren't supporting you, maybe He needed you to know that right now. in the moment. He needed to show you who they were. He needed you to show that everything you thought you had with them, maybe it never was that. And maybe he has something greater for you in this life. And you don't want to miss that blessing at all. You don't. So quit telling God what you'd like him to do. It's okay to say, hey, if you could, and if you think this could be good, you know, you're not helping him. He already knows. But you know, I have those conversations with him still. I do. I have those conversations that say, "Oh God, really? This? I look. I told you. I know. I said 2x4, but I'm just thinking. Do you think maybe where you're maybe this isn't good? You know, God, I'm just thinking because you know, God. On the other hand, I see where this is gonna see what this is gonna do. I see this gonna rev somebody up. I see that God. This may not be where I am as liked as I am in this moment. And let me tell you what God said. You don't need anybody like you, Molly Stone Bibb. No, you don't. All you got to know is I have a bigger path for you. And I have opened it up and I have hit you over the head with the 2x4. So go forth, my child, and do you. Do the best you and put the blinders on to the people who just, they don't see it. They don't understand. They don't walk my journey. They don't know. They don't know what the struggles have been. They don't know. Those people don't know your struggles either, okay? I know, look, I share a lot. My gosh, you know, it's like doing stuff like this. It's like my journal that I've just opened for the world to read. It's just how I have always been, and I'm okay with that. But what you need to know is that make sure that when you make decisions that you make them based on where you know God wants you and not based on how many likes you're getting on the next post. Social media can be a really, really deceiving thing. And the one thing I've learned in 60 years is some things are just meant for a season, not forever. Even if you saw it as forever, because I've been that person. Look, I didn't realize what God had for me, but honest to God, I wanted my first marriage to work. I didn't want my kids to be children of divorce. I didn't. I wanted it to be better. I wanted everything to be as I imagined it to be, so much so that I stayed in it for 17 years. And when I finally said no more, I've just had, it's enough. We're not doing this anymore. And I did go through the season of feeling like a failure. And I did go through the season of, but God, this isn't what I wanted for my kids. I didn't want them to have to experience divorce. I didn't want them to be looked at like that. I didn't want any of this. And I put myself in a bad situation, and now what am I going to do financially? And I've given up my house for this, and I've given up stability for this, and what is going to happen? And he said, no worries. I have Lee Bibb waiting for you. And you are going to feel protected no matter what by a man who is going to have your back no matter what. And he may be blind, but he's not stupid. And I'm going to give him insight that when you can't see what's going on, he's going to see it, Molly. And he's going to help you. And he's going to guide you. And whatever you do, you're going to do together. Suddenly, I thought, man, I'm really glad I did what I knew I needed to do. I knew that God was in it. But it didn't mean I didn't have to go through everything I went through to get there. So, no, everybody has those stories. And sometimes they don't always go great because you do your own thing. Oh, I have so many of those early on. Whoo, so many of those early on. That, matter of fact, I didn't even talk to God. I just went ahead and made all the decisions. And it definitely did not always turn out in my favor. Matter of fact, most of the time. But what I did know is there were many times that I shouldn't have been saved by what I was getting myself into. And in every instance, because I'm still here, God had a different plan. He got me through it. It could have been easier, maybe, if I had taken his path, but I wasn't talking to him then. So I missed out. But God said, that's okay. He said, because I'm going to use all these times you didn't listen, Molly. I am going to use all these instances in your life that you made wrong decisions and you thought you knew better. I'm going to use them, and you're going to be able to help other people. You're going to be able to share it, and you're going to be able to be brave, and you're going to be able to stand up when others don't. You're going to be able to share your truth when nobody else will. And you're still going to have people who hate you, and you're still going to have people who dislike you, and you're still going to have people who want to trip you up, and you're still going to have people who want to shut you up, and you're still going to have people who see it differently than you lived it, although I was the one who lived it, right? And I see all these years later that being able to share so many of those times and have somebody say, Molly, wow, man, I needed this. I was feeling this, and you brought me home on it, man. I realized that, yes, I've got to keep on the path that God wants me, even when it's not the popular decision, even when it's not the popular vote. It is the hardest time to do that. But if you choose it, choose the steps of obedience, make sure anything you do, God is in it and He's directing. And no matter how hard the struggle is, no matter what you feel like you're losing because you do it, if God is in it, eventually the win is going to show itself to you. I promise. All right? So that's what I got for you today. I hope you take it. I hope you apply it to your life. I hope that you will go out to your local Hobby Lobby and all of that, which is where I get a lot of her books, or Amazon. And I hope that God has really used this lady to share her own life stories and absolutely help me through current decisions and during all my cancer stuff, man. That the book that my friend bought, my very first experience with her, it got me through some of the worst of times. And I know that she was speaking, but it was really God speaking through her. So I just want you to know that God puts people out there to share their experiences so that you will sometimes go, oh, maybe I need to learn, oh, maybe I need to think about that. But sometimes it's just to show you you're okay. It is rough right now. It is hard. You have figured out some different things about people. You have seen who your friends are and who they're not. You have seen stuff that maybe you didn't want to see, but you had to see, right? That like you saw things as they were and that God had it. And for everything that you lose, there is something else for you to gain. I promise. It is. It is. So walk the journey, but walk it with Him, because I promise you, it may be hard, but it's so much easier than trying to walk it on your own. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next Tuesday.